Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Magic Towers Resort. We are back in Mystic Lagoon for this first part of the video because we still have a few slides to finish essentially. So in the last episode we started working on these water slides here that are very much incorporated into the terrain. Pretty much kind of inspired by the Typhoon Lagoon storm water slides basically. And obviously we still have to finish those. Now my initial idea was to just go up with them, you know, and finish them up pretty much from the point that I had them right now, but I figured that I needed to be a little bit longer, so I am going to be extending out the layout a bit further, just to get a bit more in there, I guess, and get a few more twists and turns in there, just to really set the theme well, and you know, make them go under over each other a bit more as well, just to add a bit more interaction, and to also allow them to kind of go into the terrain a bit as well, you know, just to add some variety and to make it a bit more interesting to look at especially. Now I've already started adding some theming here, but the idea here is really that we're gonna kind of dig it into the terrain. Now obviously that's a bit hard to do in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2, and we'll try to do our best, but since we can't really make that work as well as I would like, we are also gonna have to you know, kind of make it come out of the sides of the cliffs a bit, and that's where I'm getting in with these supports basically to kind of show that, you know, some humans had to prevent the river from creating a waterfall there, because in the end I guess they are kind of like rivers that were just going to be thematically they are basically just rivers running down a hill, and obviously it might ruin the the environment if they start running too wild and start creating waterfalls. So instead, you know, the people living in this area might have started to prevent that from happening by adding some guardrails and stuff like that, just to keep the water in flowing the way it was, basically. So yeah, I had a bit of a struggle here because I initially wanted them to end at the same height, but I couldn't really make that work, so eventually I just had to kind of give up on that idea and just make them, you know, all start from a different height, and I think that works out pretty well in the end. You'll see what it will look like in just a little bit. But basically the middle one starts a little higher than the other ones, and you know, you kind of have like different levels to start from, and I guess, you know, yeah, get very different experience on the different slides in general, and I think that's kind of nice actually, because one of the slides might be a bit more extreme than the other, and that way, you know, you're able to offer a bit more variety in terms of the slides that you have available. So I think in the end that works out really quite well, and here we are just adding the path to go up the mountain. Obviously it's a little bit of a zigzag there, just to get to the top of the mountain, so that the peeps can queue up there and get into their preferred water slide. Now the water slide ends up in the river down at the bottom. It's a bit of a rocky, a dry section there, and after that the river pretty much continues into a waterfall and you know, flows into the lazy river essentially. So I think that way, you know, everything kind of fits together really quite well, and it really allows us to extend that theme into the other rides as well. So I'm really quite happy with how that is turning out right now. Now obviously these slides are a little bit bare right now, so we're going to be adding a bit more theming to it. Now what I didn't get around to doing so far is some kind of sun covers on the stations for these slides. Now I kind of forgot about it because I was too busy actually, you know, dressing up the water slide itself, that I kind of forgot about, you know, adding some sun cover for the peeps that are going to be queuing in that queue there, and but that's something that I'll probably have to do in the future, because honestly I don't think anyone really wants to be waiting there if it's something like an Orlando sun out there. Just not a very pleasant thing to be standing in while you're unprotected in your bathing suit, basically. I have to get back to that eventually, I guess. I'll get there to that at some point. So as for dressing up this slide some more, or these slides some more, we're just going to be adding a lot of foliage just to kind of dress it up. So, really going with that nature theme here and really trying to make it seem like a real mountain with some rivers that are running down the down the hill basically, and we're kind of trying to stay within that theme. So we're extending up the mountain at the end as well, just to kind of make it seem like there's more to the mountain than there actually is, which is just a pretty common thing that I tend to do with a lot of these areas. You really want to make it seem like the area doesn't just end where you can't see anymore, or to the point where you're just looking outside of the park and you can just see whatever is outside of the park. Instead, you kind of want to try and make it seem like there's more outside of the park. So what I'll try to do a lot is plant the same type of foliage right outside of the park as well, just to add a bit more layers to the park and make it seem like there's a bit more to see. Now, speaking of sea, there's a lot. The Disney Sea actually has some really awesome examples of that. If you look up Tokyo Disney Sea in Tokyo in Japan on Google Maps, you can actually see that a lot of their backstage buildings have some theming elements on the second floor basically. And the only reason for that being there is because, like, a very long distance away, there's just a bit of a gap in the scenery inside of the land itself. And so people would normally be able to see the show building that's right behind there or something in the distance. So instead, to fix that, they kind of themed that as if it is part of the entire environment. Now, what that helps to create is a lot more depth and makes this area seem a lot larger than they actually are, because you're seeing these buildings all the way off in the distance, all the way outside of the park actually. And it just seems like, there's a lot more to explore than there really is. Now, another way you can solve this usually is by, just putting a building to block the sight lines. But in some places, it can really pay off if you spend a bit more and try to extend those sidelines outwards and really let them get a lot further than they normally would get, into the backstage areas. As long as you have the resource to actually theme the backstage areas a little bit, that's fine, and it actually adds a lot more depth to the area and a lot more realism to the area in general. So if you want to look this up, just look up the Tokyo Disney Sea on Google Maps. Make sure you're in 3D mode so you can really look around a bit more. And then to the right of the entrance, kind of between the Mediterranean area and the Arabian area, like right behind there are some buildings, so you'll see what I'm talking about, where the second floor of those backstage buildings are basically themed in a way that you might not really expect. And it's done in a lot more places than just that one, but it's really interesting to see. And I think, it would be nice to see more theme parks do that, because I don't really know of a lot of theme parks that actually extend outwards that much. It's really impressive to see. It's very interesting stuff for sure. So, you can really try to incorporate that inside of your Rollercoaster Tycoon parks as well. Now, obviously, you're not going to get the sight lines that you get in real life to really get that idea across. But what you can do is kind of try to put your mind inside of that of a peep, basically, and try to imagine what the sight lines are that the peeps are actually seeing, and trying to make it work for that, basically. So yeah, that's something that you can try and do inside of your own parks if you want to, go a bit further in terms of the realism and the immersion for the guests. Now, speaking of immersion, we're gonna get into a slightly more boring section of this video, I suppose, because I am actually gonna have to work some more on the infrastructure of the entire resort as well, unfortunately. Now, I guess not really unfortunately, because it's still going to be pretty interesting, I guess. Or at least I still find it pretty interesting to work on this sort of stuff as well. A reason why this came up in my mind real quick was because, I was thinking about some of the other resorts or some of the other hotels that we might be getting inside of this map. And to accommodate that, I needed a bit more infrastructure, kind of plan it out a bit more so I could actually have some spaces to build some of the other accommodation. Now, one of the accommodations that I already said that I wanted to build is some kind of vacation park right beside the river, basically, with some vacation homes basically that you can rent. And besides that, I'd also like to make some additional hotels. So I'm currently really excited to go back to Europa Park again, and I actually booked a vacation to take my brother there, who will be visiting that park for the very first time, hopefully, if all goes well. And you know, just the excitement of going there again really made me think about the hotels. I've thought this before, but the Europa Park resort experience is absolutely amazing. Because the entire experience doesn't end when you leave the theme park. Basically, you can go to the hotels, go to the restaurants, which have really great food, absolutely amazing quality. And once you're done eating, you can go to one of the many bars that they have and get as many cocktails as you want. Basically, it's a really fun time when you're with friends. So, you know, with that in mind, I really wanted to build another hotel again. We're not really quite gonna get there with this very episode yet, but that is something that I do want to get working on again, because it's been a little while again, obviously. And it just seems like a really fun thing to do. Now, one of the really cool hotels that they have at Europa Park is a Italian themed hotel, which is almost kind of like in the shape of the Colosseum. And when you're inside of that, it really feels like you're in some sort of an Italian town, basically. It's really well done, especially at night when the lights come on. You know, you can really tell that they put a lot of effort in trying to get the idea across for the area that you're there for. And, you know, that combined with all the restaurants that they have there and the bars and stuff like that just makes it an amazing place to walk around in and to experience for yourself, for sure. So with that in mind, you know, I kind of want to try and do a Mediterranean type of hotel as well, just to really embrace the idea that you're creating in a hotel to immerse the guests into a certain experience. Because so far, the only hotel that we have right now is a bit more modern. Basically, it's a bit more basic in terms of the immersion, I guess. It's not really trying to immerse you into a certain theme. It's just trying to, perhaps at best, trying to convey the nature theme as a whole in a very modern sense, essentially. But obviously, I think a lot of what makes the hotels that Disney has, for example, very interesting is the way they are themed to really immerse yourself into a different type of environment. And so that's something that I really want to try and do myself as well. You know, because that's going to be very interesting to try and tackle, basically. Because how are you going to build a hotel that might look like an Italian town, for example? That's quite a big question, actually, and pretty challenging to do, I assume. Obviously, I don't want to just copy the hotel that Europa Park has, because I don't really want to copy anything, obviously. I do want to try and come up with some ideas of my own, basically. But that's going to be pretty interesting to look into, I guess. So that's something that I'm pretty excited for, and hopefully we'll get there very soon as well. Now, the current roads that I'm building right now are pretty much set up for the vacation park that's going to be sitting next to the river, and I think that might be the very first thing that we might start working on in terms of the accommodation, because, you know, I got the road set up for that right now, so that makes a lot of sense. But maybe, I'm not entirely sure yet, maybe as an extension of the vacation park, we might actually build the hotel. Or we might build it kind of in a way that connects it to the other hotel that we have. Or maybe even the entertainment district, like right next to the entertainment district, we might actually build the another hotel. Because one of the things that, you know, I've really thought about a bit more, for example, with Europa Park, is the way that you can just walk from one hotel to the other. All the hotels and parks are really well connected. So from your hotel, you can very easily just walk through some of the other hotels, and that way you get to the theme park, and you don't really have to take a bus or anything to do so, which is really quite interesting, really quite fun, and really helps to allow people to go from one bar to the other or something, or go to a restaurant and then go to a pool and then, you know, find another bar or something. You know, really allows people to really explore the space. Because when you have to take buses to get from the different to take you to the different destinations, then you might not be really inclined to take the bus, because it might take half an hour before the bus arrives or something. You know, it's not very convenient. And if you have to take the car, obviously there are some challenges involved if you want to drink some kind of alcoholic drink. So that's a bit of a hassle. Either someone doesn't have to drink, or you gotta tackle that as well. So having everything walkable is actually a really great thing. So I'm kind of curious if we can try to get something like that inside of this park. So we'll see. That's something for the future though. Thank you guys so much for watching again. That's about it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. It really helps out this channel. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Alright, bye bye.